Hey, welcome to the Adler.tv show. I'm Chris Adler, and I host a podcast. Last year, 2019, my goal was to get 50 episodes done, and I got 30 done. It's not really a win, but it wasn't really a loss because I had a whole bunch of other stuff on my shoulders as well. I did 20 daily documentaries for the Rick and Bubba show. That's my real job. So I did 30 podcasts, 20 of those daily documentaries, in addition to all the stuff that I do every single day as well. So it's not really a win, but it's not really a loss. It's just another reason to keep on pushing. Anyways, thanks for coming back. Today's guest is Drew Cunningham. She's an FM radio DJ on Birmingham Mountain Radio, heard on 107.3 FM, and she invited my wife and I to come to the studio to be guest DJs on the all-female artist show that Drew hosts called Shisho. Drew is also a speech therapist, and she has a son who's an actual genius, so we're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. I also recorded this podcast in October of 2019, so some of the dates are kind of weird, so sorry about that. Glad to be back. Here's Drew Cunningham. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about shooting in the studio because this is an actual radio studio. I'm not going to have to cut out sounds of dogs barking or my dog running around on the floor. This is an actual place for sound.
We have a sign on the door that cautions anyone, even people out in the waiting area.
We are at the studios for 107.3 Birmingham Mountain Radio. They are located kind of in the same facility as Good People Brewing Company. And I'm sitting down with Drew, who is the host of a weekly show called Shisho. And she has been cool enough to invite myself and my wife to be guests on her show. So before we are live on the Shisho, I've convinced Drew to sit down and talk to me about radio and the music industry and speech therapy too, if you're open to talking about that.
Oh, sure.
So thanks so much. I'm so excited.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I don't think I've been on the airwaves with you in
about 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome. We were fellow DJs on Live 100.5, which is kind of the precursor to this radio station. It was kind of the in-between step between 107.7 The X, which was a big-time Birmingham alternative radio station, and now this long-running, super successful, awesome to see, blessing to the city of Birmingham radio station called Birmingham Mountain Radio. It's so cool to see what you guys are doing. You are a regular on Birmingham Mountain Radio as well, but that's more of kind of the normal programming on the station. How long has Shisho been going on? What led to it, and what's your goal for this show?
I guess this is the 6th Shisho. I did the first 2 by myself, and then we started guest DJ sets where I pick half the music and my guest picks the other half of the music. So you're guest DJ number 4.
Awesome.
Uh-huh.
So, and my wife and I are the first couple to be on the show?
First couple. Okay. Actually, your wife is the first official female guest DJ that we've had. It's all men.
That's great.
All these
That's
men
so
are wanting to be. It's funny, but the people are tearing me up wanting to be guest DJs on the show, and it's mostly men.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
You know what? All right. Well, I'm just gonna cut straight to this question then, because I do see this. I've seen this as a trend in my life. Why do a lot of women have trouble with women singer-songwriters and lead singers and women singing women music? Why? A lot of times you hear that from women specifically, that they generally don't like women singing.
Well, I think that's in our biological makeup in a way.
No.
I really do. Women are kind of competitive with each other.
They are very competitive, yeah.
For resources, just like in the animal kingdom.
Yeah,
you know, there's no rules. No.
Drew, oh wow, Drew said it, not me.
They are a little competitive with each other, and so I think that might be it. But I hear a lot of guys say that. You will hear guys say, "I don't like women artists, really.
Right.
I just don't really like them." So we're trying to change that with the Shisho.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is a lot of men are very enthusiastic about the show. But I think women just kind of have I don't know. It's
a competitive edge. Let's just say
it is a little
edge.
competitive.
Or their women are just super over the top about their female artists that they might be a fan of.
Absolutely.
It's like I've noticed that women don't really have an in between. Like my wife, she was throwing together the songs, and I think you gave us 6 or 7 songs or something like that.
Right.
And Aaron said that I get to choose 2 of those, and I was like,
okay.
"How is that math fair?" She said it's called the Shisho Show.
That is correct.
And so I tried to maybe find a different song, and look, nothing against Ani DeFranco, but just me suggesting removing Ani DeFranco from the list made my wife like blood came from her eyes, and she almost scratched out my eyes. But yeah, it's so funny to see a lot of women that either are not a fan of a female artist, or they're just over the top, over supportive, and I feel that overwhelming support from women towards their female artists as well.
And I've had a lot of women that are super supportive of the Shisho. I've had lots of new people reaching out to me, wanting to do things. Girls Rock, Birmingham sent me something. We're probably going to end up doing a lot of things with Girls Rock, and the upcoming Moonstone Festival. That's all female artists at Schloss Dock. So we'll be involved with that too. Lauren Elizabeth is the organizer of that festival. So my plan, I haven't asked her yet. Surprise. But I'm planning on trying to have her come and do a guest DJ set surrounding the moon stuff. So there are a lot of women that are really into the Shisho.
Yeah. So is that going to be like Birmingham's version of Lilith Fair or something like that?
It is.
Yes. My wife will be there. Seriously, my wife is like all about like Lilith Fair and Tori Amos and just all those artists. So like we brought a lot of that for the heat on the Shisho tonight.
You sure did.
Yeah.
It'll be great. She'll have to come. It's great art. Rose of the West is a really great artist. They're from up north, like Michigan or somewhere like that, but they recorded their album here in Birmingham. They're on Communicating Vessels, the label here, and the Watson twins, who play with Jenny Lewis all the time. They're part of the festival. But yeah, people should check out that lineup because it's going to be pretty incredible.
Awesome. Drew, I just want you to know that I appreciate you still being my friend after me no longer working for the hip and cool radio station here in town. I'm so out of the loop. I go to like one concert a year. I see nighttime in Birmingham like twice a year. I am a homebody loser, and I appreciate you still being my friend and keeping me in the loop about what's cool.
Oh.
So let's talk about some of our old Live 100.5 days.
Okay.
So one of my favorite things that we used to do on the Live 100.5 days was the Tuesday Night Music Club with you and myself and Reg, and sometimes we'd have like a guest come in too, but we would just bring music to the table and just give. DJ Coco, he sat in on a couple of them.
He
that's
sure
right.
did.
Who's our like
Andrew Thorpe.
Yeah, our British bloke buddy. Is bloke bad? Bloke's okay,
No, bloke
right?
is good.
Bloke is okay?
Yeah.
Okay, shoot.
Bloody's a cuss word. Bloke is not.
Oh, okay, that's right. I remember I found out because it's in Independence Day, Will Smith is like, let's shoot those alien bastards. And I didn't know bastard was a bad word. And so I came home and I was playing video games, talking to my brother, and we're both little kids. And I was just like, shoot the bastard. And my dad's like, don't say that. I was like, okay, sorry. But yeah, we did the Tuesday Night Music Club. And back to my point, it was a fun time to just have people present other music, and it was kind of a vulnerable place to be because you'd be like, oh man, I hope my song goes over good on the radio waves and in the room, with the people that are listening to it. But that was a fun time, and it was a cool thing that like you really didn't see. Like pull the curtain back. Let's just pull the curtain back on what is the current FM radio industry. You really don't have the DJs choosing music.
Not at all.
Yeah. And a lot of times on these cooler independent stations, you might have a show here or there. But if you're listening to like classic rock across the country of the United States, you listen to an FM classic rock radio station, and the voice that you hear, they might not even live in the same part of the country.
That is correct.
As you, because of just like FM radio kind of got blown up, and you've been in radio for a long time. So you saw both sides of it. You saw the change, and you've been successful in both worlds. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. Actually, I guess I really never have worked for a station that was programmed somewhere else. I've always been local, Birmingham from the X to Live 100.5 to now. I've been lucky. And before I was at the X, I was at Lightning 100 in Nashville.
Nice. That's right.
So
that's
same
right.
thing. So I've escaped the corporate world of radio. Yeah. And it always, and when corporate comes in and takes over an independent station, it's gone. Yeah. That's what happens. Yeah. But I think we're successful. Birmingham Mountain Radio is successful because of that local connection. That is the only thing that terrestrial radio has to compete with the 5 million internet, satellite, all the outlets that people have to choose from. The only way you can get people to connect with you is to have the local connection. And that's what we've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. And that's what's one of the super cool things about you guys being located down here. You're in the heart of downtown Birmingham, and a lot of the things that are going on. Because, like, when we were doing back in the Live 100.5 days, there was no Regents Field.
Right.
There was no Iron City. There was like Workplay as far as downtown venues, and boy, did we promote the heck out of Workplay.
Sure
if there was a show at Workplay, we would tell you about it. But man, it's just really cool to see the city continue to grow, and I really do feel like we were a cool stepping stone that helped continue to push the city forward towards like hip things, When
we started Birmingham Mountain Radio, we were down in the basement of a little advertising agency in Forest Park, and it was early 2011, and I would call Gino, our program director, and say, Gino, what am I supposed to talk about? What have you got for me to talk about? And he'd be like, nothing, whatever, nothing. We don't have anything. And boy, has that changed. Now it's like you're almost like, people get upset if you don't talk about them enough. We have to be really careful. We have so many things to talk about. We struggle to give people equal time.
Yeah. And that's, you can't have a city without that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like you have to have this kind of hip, young culture to feed the city for years to come, you know? And Birmingham didn't have a whole lot of that, so it's really awesome to see the city to continue to do well. And just to continue to ruin FM radio for anybody that might not be listening to a cool, hip local station, there's this thing called voice tracking.
Oh, yeah.
And so your DJ might not even be like, probably isn't even live.
That's right.
That you're listening to when you're like, hearing a DJ talk in between songs. They might just have done this thing called voice tracking, and this is so inside, but we got to tell people, Drew. We got to let them know. That's when you go and sit in the studio, and I used to voice track, like, because a lot of times I was on from like, because you had the midday show on Live 100.5, like the lunch, the drive time.
10 to 3 I was on, or 10 to 2?
10 to 3, 2, something like that. Yeah. And that's like, it's so crazy how like drive traffic is something that you really have to think about and cater to.
Yes.
But some stations do a really bad job of catering to just that 15-minute drive time without trying to get people to listen longer.
Right.
Like, so they'll play a song 3 times an hour during that drive time, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're pushing people away. There's no way that there's no way this can be good for long-term listenability.
Right.
But anyways, so voice tracking is when you go in, and a lot of times I would voice track my last 2 hours just because it was just, it was getting late. I had to be up the next morning or whatever. And so it's this crazy software program. You sit down and you can hear the last like 15 seconds of a song, so you kind of know what mood to be in when you're talking with your voice, And it'd be like some like, the end of some song like... Counting Crows, and so you knew if it was like a sad Counting Crows or an even sadder Counting Crows song, so you knew what kind of tone of voice to be in. Then you say the song, maybe mention like a local event, give out that like contact info. Send us the text. Do you remember we were doing this?
Send us a text. That was terrible. Remember that?
Yes.
That was when we learned that people are not nice when they're sending a text.
It was bad, yeah.
It was.
But it was also like super clunky. It was like it wasn't the best way to communicate with people at all. But like the corporate higher up were like pushing it on us to use it for some reason. I'm sure that once the people started texting us, like they were just selling everyone's phone numbers that they,
probably.
probably were.
Yep.
Gosh.
Yep.
Ridiculous. We didn't even know it, but we were just feeding into that whole
I remember
corporate.
people saying some pretty cruel things to me at that time, and that never would have happened on the X when we only communicated by phone.
Right.
When they were talking to a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old keyboard warriors or whatever, it's definitely a different time now.
That's right.
Seacrest will do a show from his basement, Ryan Seacrest.
Right.
And he's not even in the same room as his co-host.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they just do their normal banter thing, and then they're like, and here's Lana Del Rey or something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's so nuts.
I don't know how you do that. I can't imagine having a co-host that you have to voice track with.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that.
Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley, he does the exact same thing.
Oh,
He'll do a show that's based out of Atlanta.
Right.
He does it here in Birmingham, sitting by himself.
Yeah.
And we never know that he's not in the same room with his morning crew that's always with him. Yeah. So, yeah, the nature of radio has definitely changed. I remember when I was working at Live 100.5, and this is when the economy was just terrible. It was horrible, and just everybody realized that we either need to be a Birmingham Mountain Radio or we just got to make it so that our radio station takes the least amount of money possible.
Right.
So you saw these people that were working, afternoon shifts, just all because we were in a cluster, meaning like there was a sports station in town, there was a classic rock station, a urban station, a classic, I'd already say classic rock, and then us. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of stations in one building, and we just saw people carrying their things out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever told you that story. I'm in the studio one day, and just voice talent after voice talent just was carrying their stuff out. It was just like the reckoning happened in FM radio across the country.
Yep.
And that switch was changed to a voice tracking world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the whole world changed as far as FM radio was concerned.
Yeah.
So, you are also for your job, you're also a speech therapist?
Correct.
So what do you do? What is that, home visitations or something?
Right now I'm doing home health.
Yeah.
And so that's right. I work with adults, and it's a medical related job. A lot of speech therapists work in the schools with children, but I work with adults, and I work at the hospital, and I also do home care visits.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your patients generally, what kind of scenarios are they dealing with?
A lot of strokes. A lot of people,
Okay.
because strokes often get your communication ability and your swallowing ability. A lot of people don't know that speech therapists also rehabilitate swallows when something has happened to cause a disorder. Some people are not even able to eat after something like that. And so you do exercise. You become a physical therapist for the throat.
Wow.
Almost, and then that restores their ability to eat. So, if you're successful but a lot of people with strokes, a lot of people with Parkinson's disease. So I see that a lot of people with that, and different other things too. A lot of bad things. Once you're an adult and need speech therapy, something has happened to your brain, and so you've been through something pretty rough at that point.
Like car accident, or you see some
car accidents, absolutely. Head injury. We see a lot of head injury and cancer. Oh, it's
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what part of the brain is affected by the cancer or whatever?
That is correct. That's right. Whatever part of the brain is affected is what's happening. I got in the hospital, I got pretty good. There was one time I hadn't seen the chart, saw the guy, and he couldn't start a swallow at all. And I looked at him, I said, "You've had a stroke in your brain stem, haven't you?" And the nurse was in there, and he said, "How'd you know that?" And I said, "I just know it. I've seen it so many times." Yeah.
Besides car accidents, what is the thing that's causing the most traumatic brain injuries?
Let's see. It is car accidents is usually, and falls. People falling a lot. Yeah. And alcohol use, it's heavy alcohol use, falls. Yeah. And of course, car wrecks. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can drink so much that it Like, what happens to cause you to not be able to speak?
There's the head injury. There's the head injury that comes, like, if you fall, if you have an accident, when you're drunk. But then I also see people who haven't had a traumatic injury who've just they've been drinking for years and years, and they actually get a dementia. There's a dementia that's associated with that. Yeah, because we not only work on just direct communication, but cognitive skills too.
Yeah.
People's decision making and safety awareness and that kind of thing.
Yeah. As far as decision making, they're seeing that just like brain injuries tend to people that have brain injuries tend to make much more rash decisions.
Absolutely.
And like sometimes poor decisions.
That's right.
Which is crazy when you see it makes you wonder like what's playing into that. When you see like ex-athletes with all this violence that, tends to plague a lot of these athletes, you're like, is that playing into it? Plus the fact that they've been a king in their own universe,
Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Here's what happens with athletes. They have head injuries and at a young age. So they will have a dementia that sets in at a young age. It can start in their 40s a lot of times. And it's called frontotemporal dementia because the injury tends to be here and then here on the side, your frontal and temporal lobes of the brain.
Yeah.
And that is a rough dementia because physically they'll be fine. They'll be running around, but their mind, they're very disinhibited. They tend to be very socially inappropriate and very difficult. It's so difficult for their families to deal with. But I've had people like that, and sure enough, they had a history of playing football, loved football, and so...
It's football is the magnifying glass is getting shown on football and its negative effects because for a while there and then the page turned so that the care is becoming better, but like the better the care gets, the more that we're seeing like okay, the kind of the entire nature of this sport is kind of a problem.
Yes. I know, and I love it. I spent all yesterday watching.
I watched football. I watched football all day yesterday too,
and I love it.
So it's like, what can we do? And as an educated person, like I'm not the football savior. I'm not the protector of the brains.
Right.
But at the same time, as an educated person, you're like, we got to do something about this.
I know, and I know in the protective headgear, I see those, just those injuries, those spine compression injuries all the time, and when they're playing. And the other thing is boxing. You think about Muhammad Ali with Parkinson's disease. And then and I think a lot of these football players also not only get that I think you see a lot of Parkinson's disease in them. At a relatively young onset, like in the 50s.
Evidently, Ali, for a while in his career, he was thinking that like the brain was like your hands, and you could build up calluses on it. And so he would literally spend time taking shots to the chin in practice as part of his conditioning. Where it's like, no, dude, that is not how it works.
Yeah,
it's an egg, and once it's scrambled. That's fair. That's bad news.
You can't do anything about it. That's right.
So that's that just shows you how much things are changing, how much we've learned, that kind of thing. But I can't say anything. I have gotten heavy into UFC and mixed martial arts. Like, I'm all about it. I don't know what's going on with me, Drew. Like, I have been studying this hardcore for like the past 2 years, and there was a fight on last night. I paid to watch it. And it was amazing. Israel Adesanya took on Robert Whittaker, and the champ, Robert Whittaker, went down. I mean, spoiler alerts, people. Sorry, Drew. Sorry if I'm spoiling anything for you. But I
can't watch it.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why I'm into mixed martial arts.
Okay.
And I know you were saying that you can't watch it. My wife is the same way. She's like, what is this? What are these monsters doing to each other? And I'm like, that guy's a good family man. He's a good father, and he loves anime. It's like all this stuff. I like know the backstories on these people. It's crazy how much I've gotten into this. But it really is one of the purest forms of competition that's out there. Like, there's no umpire or really that's like capable of saying like pass interference and totally changing the game. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just two people. And granted, you know, you've got like there's no eye poking, so like your ref or whatever that's in the ring, it's going to be looking out for stuff like that. So, but as far as like just person versus person, it is just like it is one of the most pure forms of entertainment. And like I get all nervous and like I'm like eating way too much as I'm watching these people fight, and it's just it's unreal. So what you're watching is they call it MMA, mixed martial arts, and it really is tons of different martial arts put into
together.
One. Like you have to be good at boxing,
right?
Because we're standing up, and if we're trying to punch each other, you got to be a really good boxer, right?
Right.
And then, but kicks are allowed too, so you got to be able to do kickboxing, which is a whole nother sport, you know?
Right.
And then a lot of times people in the kickboxing world, they're using like Muay Thai techniques, which is a type of kickboxing. Okay, so we're getting closer and closer as distance gets, you know, as the two people get closer and closer to each other. You know, closing the distance, that term, you know, you've heard that before. So you've got boxing, you've got kickboxing or Muay Thai, whatever you want to call it. And then you get closer, and then once they clinch up, that's wrestling. Like you know, Greco-Roman wrestling in the Olympics, or like judo, when you see people throwing the other person to the ground, they're like, whoa, how'd they do that? That kind of thing. You got to know that when you're in that kind of distance from your opponent. And then what if it gets taken to the ground? What if you tackle me or I tackle you? Now we're on the ground, and then that's jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
So you have to know all these arts, and within these there's tons of different variations. Maybe you choose this kind of boxing, maybe you're a southpaw boxer. You got to know how to deal with that. Or maybe you're a different kind of kickboxer, or you know, you do a lot of body kicks instead of leg kicks. By the way, leg kicks are this thing that like it's unreal. If me, a tiny little dude, I can chop down a gigantic tree if I'm good at leg kicks.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like if I have a trick that you don't know how to deal with at any stage of a conflict, you're done. You're out. You lose. So that's what I'm watching.
This is so foreign to my Shisho world.
Oh my goodness! I completely forgot we were sitting here supposed to be talking about Shisho. That's great, Drew. All right, Drew, you are one of the first people that ever talked to me about how deodorant is bad for you.
Oh yeah.
You're the first person to ever tell me this. And I was like, what? Well, I just now got to where I'm regularly putting on deodorant. Now you tell me it's bad for me? So I've been living my life thinking that, and like I only wear deodorant on days when I'm like going to be working around strangers.
People,
Yeah, not even like my normal coworkers. They have to deal with it.
Wow.
I've moved to that level.
Gone to the extreme.
Well,
with this.
I'm losing friends rapidly, but I feel better. I feel better as a person. Seriously, give me the lowdown on that. You telling me one time about like a stone that you can use instead.
Yeah,
or
the stone that you kind of get wet, and now I actually don't use that anymore. It's a liquid crystal, but it's a liquid. But it does. Here's the important thing: you do not want to block your sweat glands and that sweat action. You know, people love to be dry. They love it, and it's very socially acceptable to be so dry. You know, I went to an event here recently, and there was and I had to wear my Birmingham Mountain Radio t-shirt, and the air conditioner was, and of course it's been 103 degrees every day. The air conditioner at the place was not working well, and I was horrified. Half my shirt was soaked, and I was running to the restroom and flapping my shirt, and there was no hand dryer in the restroom, so I was just flapping it around going, Lord, please let this evaporate. And it wouldn't. Great. But it's true. It's because I do wear deodorant because, it works great for odor, but boy, for stemming that flow, but it's not good to be that. It's not good to dry. Do that. It's not. And for women, if you think about it, there's an association with breast cancer, because if you're clogging up this, all your lymph tissue is in your armpits, and if you are clogging that up, you are keeping the toxins in there. Your body has got to get rid of it. There's a reason why we sweat. Not only does it cool you off, but you're getting rid of toxins in your body.
So where can I get some of that stuff? Do they make it in like a man scent?
Yeah, they do. It's unscented. You got to go for the unscented, and it's called like liquid crystal. I mean, you can do the rock, and that'll last you forever. Plus, it's just cheaper. That rock will last you forever.
I can't believe that it's just a rock. How does the rock work?
I don't know. It's the salt. Something about the salts neutralize the odor.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I never smell at all.
Right.
But boy, I flow.
But at least you don't feel all. Honestly, I really do. I've transitioned away from those heavy metal deodorants.
Absolutely, the aluminum is so bad.
Yeah. You're just rubbing aluminum on you, like that can't be good for you.
No.
And then I used to, because I'm a very sweaty man as well. I'm an incredibly sweaty dude, and the Arm & Hammer body spray, that powder stuff. Number one, it was an aerosol spray, so I felt like I was breathing it in too.
Yeah, that's probably not good.
And then two, I'm just putting aluminum, baking powder, all that stuff.
Now, plain baking soda will work. That's like my granddad used that.
Okay.
He just had a box of Arm & Hammer, and it was just a pat.
It's just a pat.
He sure did.
Well, I've transitioned away from all that, and I'm just going only Body Glide. Do you know what Body Glide is?
No. Sounds like that's not something you put in under your arms.
You can.
Yeah.
Body Glide is more for other parts of your body too. Yeah, and so it's actually used by a lot of marathon runners.
Okay.
So, 'cause basically in my life, I get as sweaty as a marathon runner would.
Yes.
So I've used it. It works well.
Just hanging out, being on the radio, you're that sweaty?
I don't know what's wrong with me, Drew. I should probably go to a doctor. I'm going to do some quick questions for you.
Okay.
Just some quick questions about just the music industry, because being one of the perks about being in the radio booth, one of the perks is you get to go to a lot of shows, which is great. Yes. Because as radio DJs, we obviously love music, and live music, you can't beat it. It's hard to beat. It really is. So some rapid fire questions here. But while I am talking about one of the few and only perks of being in radio, all the other downsides are like, you work weird hours and you work on holidays and you make $0.
That's right. Correct. Check.
So one of the few perks is you get to see some cool live shows from time to time. So what is because there's a difference between a concert and a festival show. What's your favorite festival show and what's your favorite concert you've ever been to?
Oh, goodness. Okay. This is going to take me a minute
to
think about. Let's see. Favorite festival experience, I have to say I really enjoyed Schloss Fest a lot, except for the heat.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only problem. But the good perk about that was they had us in that brick building with a huge fan. So it actually was a pretty good experience.
Oh, nice.
I can't imagine being general admission at Schloss Fest.
You do get spoiled. When you're on the inside, you get spoiled at a festival.
You do, because I could take a break. But Lily Mae at Schloss Fest is I love her. And
cool.
That was one of my favorite Schloss Fest experiences. Let's see. And I'm trying to think about, best concert. Oh, gosh, best concert ever. I got to say one of my Jane's Addiction back in the day. Jane's Addiction at the amphitheater. This was before, and I had friends who saw them in small clubs in Cincinnati, but I did not do that. But I did see them at, it was in Indianapolis because I went to IU, and so Jane's Addiction and same amphitheater. What is the name of that amphitheater? I can't remember it. Deer something in Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, it was their amphitheater.
Nice.
And David Bowie. I got to see David Bowie too. That was one of my favorites.
Fantastic.
Let's see. Now, our Birmingham Mountain Radio, the War on Drugs was a great show.
Cool.
We saw that, and I'm trying to think.
Which is a band?
Yeah, no, yeah. We watched the war on drugs play out in Iron City.
We did. That's a band, and I'm not that cool, so I don't know very much of their music, but it is very good stuff.
Oh, I know. And the War and Treaty, that is one that I saw recently at Saturn. They're great. They're a couple they live in Nashville.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. And they stole little Haley Hawkins. We had a great intern at the radio station, Haley Hawkins, and she worked at Saturn.
Oh.
And the War and Treaty came in and snapped her up, and she now works for them.
Oh, wow.
She's moved
That's
to Nashville,
great.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
That's funny.
Thanks, War and Treaty. And let's see, gosh, I tell you a show I missed that I wish I had seen is Bob Mould was just here. How often do you get to see Bob Mould from Husker Du?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People were raving about that. I tell you, I miss a lot of shows, Chris. Same reason, because I have such a double life.
Right.
That it's hard to pack all that in at night.
No joke.
Mm-hmm.
No joke. Let's see. What is the worst concert you've ever been to?
Oh gosh. Well, it's might be Air Supply. That's
like the worst best
I
ever.
got forced to that one. Yeah, Air Supply. That was pretty bad.
I would say that honestly, one of mine, because it was just so soul crushing, was when Snoop Dogg came to Birmingham.
Okay.
And he didn't know what city he was in. What's up, Alabama? He just kept saying, what's up, Alabama? It's like, this is Birmingham. You're not covering the entire state of Alabama. And secondly, he lip synced the entire show.
Oh,
it was so frustrating.
That's disappointing.
I was like, dude, you're honestly one of my heroes of hip hop.
Yeah.
And you're out here lip syncing the entire thing. Because you could tell, like, he would jump in every once in a while with like a, or whatever. Like, yeah. That kind of thing, and then the rest of it was just tracked.
That's terrible.
It was, and the tracks were like supposed to be the tracks weren't designed, from what I could tell, the tracks were not designed to be the entire show. They were designed to supplement his show,
right? And
he was not bringing it.
Yeah,
like it just wasn't there. It wasn't happening. So like the backing tracks were kind of like muffled, like they're supposed to be,
right?
Kind of just there to support him as he does his show,
right?
It was. I was just like, dude. I mean, I still had fun because I was with my friends and that kind of thing. My wife was there with me, and that was cool. But man, besides, if it wasn't for that, you just would have been like, we kind of just ended up making fun of it and just like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
just having fun with it that way.
Yeah, super disappointing. I haven't been to a lot of bad shows. I'll tell you that. I really haven't. I got to see. Here's another good one. Steve Vai. I saw Steve Vai with the symphony. That was great.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was excellent. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I had something in my head about a bad experience, but I can't remember. I can't think of it.
Okay, you hold on to that. If you think of it.
I know. One of my favorite bands that I love, like they bring it a total energy, okay? And I've been to see them in Memphis, and they're great in small clubs, is the Reverend Horton Heat. Love them. But I went to they had a Christmas show last year at Iron City, and it was horribly disappointing.
Oh, no.
It was very vanilla up.
Oh,
it
gotcha.
wasn't that edgy, fast, rockabilly punk. It was like kind of it was
like
a
O Come,
little,
O Come Emmanuel and stuff like that.
They didn't go quite that vanilla.
Oh, okay.
But it was a little disappointing. But Junior Brown, who opened, did not disappoint.
Nice. Junior Brown, that's such a fun
amazing.
name.
He's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
What is the scariest moment you've had at a concert?
I got it. Okay. Hangout Music Festival. Okay. Gino, our program director, did not he didn't connect all the dots. And, we were supposed to have a shuttle pass to be able to get there. So we got on the shuttle that morning. It came by the hotel. We went to the pickup point. No problem. Went to hang out, had a great time all day long. Late at night, going back to the hotel, and they wouldn't let us on the shuttle because we didn't have the official pass. I guess we just had a nice driver that morning who let us on. and saw our media passes and let us on. Well, they didn't let us on for the ride back. So here we are miles from the hotel, and we are not sure, and it's packed. So they force us, the only thing we can do is to go back in the festival. They have us to try to figure out what to do. And at this point, everybody was leaving Hangout, and we were like little salmon swimming upstream, and I really thought I was going to be crushed.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
the scariest moment. We were in between these narrow gates with this huge crush of people who are not really living in the moment right Their heads were not in the moment, and I was genuinely scared I was going to get crushed.
Oh my goodness.
That's probably the scariest moment I've ever had. And then to get back, it was great though. This guy who worked there at the festival, he was one of the contractors at the festival. He said, well, if you will sit and wait, I will take you back. So we just sat and waited for about an hour, and then he drove us back to our hotel.
Yeah, festivals. You mentioned it earlier. Like, I don't think I could do general admission to a festival ever again. You just feel so like cramped and just like you're out in the elements. I'm way too old to be doing that.
I want to sit.
I know. I want to sit in air conditioning in between the sets that I'm choosing to go see.
That's right.
Like once you get that behind the scenes access to a music festival. This sounds so snooty and terrible, but like there's no going back. Like
right, yeah,
it really is. You're just like, oh my goodness, I can go in this gate and I can be at this stage, and then I can go in this gate and be at this stage.
Right.
Otherwise, it would take me an hour to walk through a crowd.
That's right.
To go to the other stage. Like there's so many reasons why.
And then
it's
I can
just
relax
so tough.
in the tent in between.
Yes.
And I thought of another concert that was slightly disappointing. It's not the worst, but when Death Cab for Cutie played Schloss Fest, they were fine. I love that band. I love their recorded music, but the live show a little insipid. They just seem like they're bored.
I mean, I get it. I get it. It's chill music. Mm-hmm. It's super chill music, and a festival. Sometimes that music kind of flounders out in the open air.
Plus, I guess I was maybe a little bit prepped not to love that show because I'd interviewed them prior to the show, and I interviewed the drummer. Okay, and that drummer, I was trying to be really sweet. Like when I sit down and interview a band, it's almost like one of my speech therapy clients. I almost approach it like a speech therapy session, and I try to be real encouraging, And the guy thought I was hitting on him. He did. He's married.
Oh, no.
He was all married and whatever. He did. He really thought I was hitting on him. And I was not. I was just trying to be, encouraging. It was a terrible interview. And it didn't give me, I didn't have a good impression. So then I just maybe was a little primed not to be as impressed with that show.
That is so funny. That brings me to my next question. What is the best and what is the worst interview you've ever done? Because you've interviewed over the years countless bands.
I got it. I got this one. Which one you want to start with, best or worst?
Whatever story's better, go last.
Okay. So, but we'll go with best. I'll save that. My best and worst are actually related to each other.
Cool.
So, okay. Let's see. Best. One of the best interviews, the first one that comes to mind is when I interviewed Brand New Immortals. Now, we don't remember that band, but it was David Ryan Harris from Atlanta, who was great, and Johnny Colt from the Black Crowes, and they have formed a new band together, and that I really hit it off with them. That was a great interview. I had no problems with that. It was, I became friends with Johnny afterwards. That doesn't happen very often.
No, definitely.
Okay, so that was one.
That's
that was the first one because that was probably one of the first good ones that I did. Yeah. I've done a lot of bad ones. Let's see, and then I know The Head and the Heart were really great.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is the more talent the band has, the more humble they tend to be. Oh, nice. It's kind of like the less talent somebody has, it's like they've got something to prove and they're just not easy to connect with.
Yeah.
Kind of noticed that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Another good one. Oh gosh, Nick Lowe. That ended up being a really great interview, but that was pretty funny. Nick Lowe was quite charmed by that, and I was so nervous to interview him because he is such a legend.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he produced all those Elvis Costello records, and and he's got. I mean, I just think he's incredible. He was married to. Johnny Cash was his father-in-law for a while. I mean, the man has lived such an interesting life, and I was really nervous, but I pulled it off. And in fact, I pulled him up so much, I charmed him. He got real shy after the interview and was like, would you come, are you coming to my show tonight? And I said, yes. And so he said, well, afterwards, would you just come find me? I was like, sure. So I did. So I bring my husband. Okay.
Yeah.
So we go to the show together.
Yeah.
Okay. And then true to form, somebody came out and was like, here, I'll take you back to where he is, after the show. Well, he he actually kissed me right in front of my husband.
Oh no!
Isn't that was a bold move?
That's bold, Nick
So I've
Lowe.
always loved Nick Lowe, ever since ever being bold. And Nick, that was a great interview. Now the best, and my worst. This was terrible. This was right after we'd started Birmingham Mountain Radio, and I was nervous because I hadn't interviewed anybody for a while.
Yeah.
And they sent me to interview the Avett brothers at
fun.
Tuscaloosa Amphitheater, and it was the very first show at Tuscaloosa Amphitheater when they opened. That was show 1.
Wow.
Band of Horses was opening up.
I was there. Yeah.
Band of Horses. So I was also scheduled to interview Band of Horses. Well, they sent me Tyler Ramsey. That was my interview, and this is the first interview I've done in years. And poor Tyler, we sat and stared at each other in silence and horror for 2 minutes. He's so talented, but he's so introverted.
Yes.
And again, I was looking at it like it was a speech. Everything, I was like, it's okay, but I had that instinct. I'm like, he is so not loving this, And I was like, we're done. Like, I mean, I learned nothing from him. I just asked him a question.
Great.
He was just blank.
Goodness.
So really, it was 2 minutes of us just staring at each other. So that one didn't air. Then, and I was
so funny.
Well, I was nervous to begin with, and then the Avett brothers were next. So I interviewed them, but they were great. They were really easy,
chill pros.
They were so easy to talk to. Okay, then. Fast forward to Schloss Fest a couple of years later, okay, and I get the list I get the list, and on it is they're like Drew, Band of Horses, and I was like, oh no, not again! I can't interview Band of Horses again.
Yeah.
Okay, but this time instead of sending me Tyler, they sent me Ben Bridwell.
Okay.
Ben Bridwell and I were best friends in about under a minute. He was so easy to talk to,
That's so funny.
And in fact, I told him the Tyler horror story. I said, guess what? They sent me Tyler, and he went, ooh, yeah. He was like, I can see how that would have been rough.
That's so funny.
So anyway.
Well, my wife just got here, and we're going to record Shisho.
Yay!
I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Drew, for sitting down and talking to me about Shisho and speech pathology or speech therapy. Not pathology.
It is pathology.
Okay, it is pathology.
There's lots of pathology.
Okay. Well, I got my shades on because we're about to do some live radio here, so I got to be cool in the booth. And my wife is here, and she's just cringing so much right now. I'm so sorry that you married me. I'm so sorry. But thank you again. Real quick, let me talk about my worst interview ever. Do you remember this? This was back in Live 100.5 days. I was supposed to interview Colin Hay from Men at Work. Do you remember this?
I do.
And Colin Hay did not like me. He just decided that I do not like this young American. Colin Hay is from Men at Work, and he's got some great solo stuff too. But I was a young punk, and I don't think he wanted to talk to me that day because it was bad.
I remember.
Do you remember? What do you remember about that?
Well, I just remember you talking about it. I didn't see it. Did we air it?
We aired it, but I I edited it down to like cut out his groans and sighs in between my questions. Be like, so what's your favorite thing to do? You know, just asking stupid questions.
Right.
And that you know, you mentioned it when you sit down for an interview. It's in that like first minute. You're just like, all right, this is gonna either go really good or really bad.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so he went bad. But, you know, you learn through those things.
He just didn't have a whole lot of respect for you, I think, because of your age. Don't you?
Probably,
Don't
yeah.
you? That's what I think it was.
Or maybe just the way I look or something.
Did you interview Bruce Hornsby?
I did. I interviewed.
How did that go?
On the phone. It was just a phoner, so it's kind of hard to tell. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes those phone interviews are tough. But, I mean, he gave me a lot of time. I mean, he gave me the time of day on the phone, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a riveting interview of any kind, you know. I kind of went to the stereotypical, like, what was your inspiration for this most recent album?
Right.
Where are you headed on the tour? How's that
Right.
going? You
Right.
know, those typical fallback questions when you're like, okay, where did you play last night? Where you play tomorrow night? You know, when they're a touring musician and they're not giving you a whole bunch, you kind of fall back on those.
I've done it.
I've done it too. Yeah.
I've
You have
done
to
it.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You just got. I mean, we're trying to make a radio segment here, buddy. Help me out. You know.
I have two more interview disappointments.
Please tell me. Please
share.
tell me. Please.
Okay, one was at Hangout and I don't know what was going on. Well, I do know what was going on. That was one. I'm not scared, and I probably should be scared of this. And I think from now on I will be.
Yeah.
You know, usually you get a list at a festival of who you're going to interview so you can prepare.
Yeah.
Okay. But sometimes somebody will just swing by and they'll say, hey, will you just interview them? And
Yes.
I'll do it. I've always just done it, you know, sure.
Totally, yeah.
Okay. So that was one like that. Here's Chris from the record company, you know,
Cool.
the record company.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Here's Chris from the record company. So I was like, sure, whatever. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, they were brand new. They only had one song out. And I'm like frantically Googling a little bit so I
Sure.
can get, you know, we had like a minute there, but I still didn't get a whole lot.
Right,
So I was
right.
kind of going to the stock questions, but he wasn't giving me a whole lot. And then somebody said to me, hey, ask him about this girl. I think he knows her. It was a girl that we knew. I think he knows her. Well, that was, I said that name and he looked 10 shades of horrified that I had mentioned her. And then, well, and that was after, actually the first thing that happened was I just completely blanked out. I've never done that.
Oh,
to
yeah, I've
the
done
point where I was just silent. I was just silent. I couldn't even speak. And he goes, are you okay? And I said, you know what? And I said, I'm not. I am not okay. So it's so embarrassing. That was a bad one. I blanked out, then like brought up somebody that I probably shouldn't have brought up.
Right.
But
And he's thinking, who is this person?
yeah, I'll never
I know.
interview them again. And then my biggest disappointment with an interview was when Schloss Fest got rained out and I didn't get to interview Big Frida. I had Big Frida on the list and I wanted to interview her so bad.
That is, you never know what's going to happen with a Big Frida interview.
That interview would have done itself.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
totally.
Yeah.
That's so
But
funny.
I didn't get to do it.
I spaced out in front of Warren Haynes one time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I had a really good question, forgot what it was,
Right.
and then I had nothing. I was just
Yeah.
a blank
Yeah.
thing, and so I had to just be like, "Hey, man, I forgot what I was gonna say, so we're gonna stand here for 10 seconds while I figure it out." And then I remembered
And
it,
then
but
you
there was a
got it.
10-second period in which
He's really nice, though, isn't he?
he's super
He's like
cool.
super nice, yeah.
there was a 10-second period in which I was standing next to one of my guitar icons, not knowing what to say and feeling very uncool. One of the scariest moments I had as an interviewer was because it was 10:15 and I woke up in bed and I had a 10:30 with Roseanne Cash.
Oh, wow.
This was a phoner interview, but still, you know, you're supposed to call that number at that time,
Right.
and otherwise, because she's sitting in her room and she's got this radio station at this
Right.
time and this radio station at another time. You know, what's it called, a radio tour or something like that?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I sprung up out of my bed and said the words out loud. I'm gonna miss my interview with Roseanne Cash. this like terrible feeling. I jumped in my car, rolled up, and I think I lived like, I seriously think I had 15 minutes to get all the way into the studio. And I ended up making it with, I was probably 4 minutes late on the call, but luckily we had like a 15-minute window. So I was able to get my 12-minute interview with her, and she was so gracious and so kind and just such a legend, It was really cool. But it's time for Shisho. We got to record a Shisho here. Thank you so much, Drew.
Thank you for having me.
You are such
fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun. It's always a joy talking to you. I always run into you in the most fun, coolest places. Like at a festival. There's my buddy Drew. We're gonna talk music. We're gonna talk what's our favorite act so far at the festival. You're always such a joy to talk to. People, check her out on Birmingham Mountain Radio. You can find it online if you're outside the city of Birmingham. Shisho airs Wednesday nights,
7 p.m.
BirminghamMountainRadio.com. Real quick, tell me about. I forgot. I wanted to ask this. Just tell me.
Still on?
We are. Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about your awesome son.
Oh yeah, Nath.
Yeah, I've met him like twice, but every time I meet him, I'm just like, well, that child is much more well-spoken and going to be much more successful than I am. And he's amazing. He's awesome. He's in college now, or is he out?
He's out. He should be in college, but he's out. He's 21.
Yeah.
He makes more money than me and my husband put together. That is correct. That is correct. He works for Google. He's a software engineer for Google.
This kid, I met him, he was like probably, I guess, 10 years ago. So he was like 12 or 13.
Right.
And he's just talking about the college credits that he's working on.
Yeah, he was already working on college credits. That's right.
The kid just is a different kind of kid has a vision.
He graduated from Alabama at 20 with his master's. So and then got a job here in Birmingham, and liked it, but then just said, I'm going to apply at Google. He really didn't think he'd get on at Google, but Google fast tracked him. He didn't even start off as a level 1. He started off as a level 3 with Google, and so he makes more money than me and my husband put together, which is disgusting. But he's also
so disgusting.
But here's the thing: he's not a California boy
at
all. He has been home. He's only been there since February. This is October. He's already been home 5 times.
Well, good for him. Good for him. He's staying connected to his roots.
He is.
When he comes back and starts a company, let me know if he's hiring. Let me know if he's hiring.
I know. I'm going to be the custodian at his company.
I'll be the video guy.
Yeah.
If he's open to that, if he's hiring, sir.